Good afternoon. We're going to get going because when you're in third year, you got to be on time, right? You have to be on time in first and second year too, I know, but we have a full program, so we're going to get started. And just want to thank you, first of all, for all being here. You look great in your white coats, ready to go for clerkships. And before we send you off to the clerkships, we wanted to have this time to get us all together as a class with the bigger Wayne State community. So welcome again. This is an inaugural event recognizing our shared efforts in preparing our Wayne Warrior physicians in training. So look around you, look at the people next to you, the people behind you, the people on stage. So this is our community. This is really who is pouring into your education from the beginning of when you matriculated at Wayne. Remember when you got your white coats a couple years ago, and now you're already at this point. So I am Margaret Chadwell. I think I've met most of you. Your Dean of Students. Today is the capstone to your pre-clerkship phase and a key mile marker on the highways to the Excellence MD curriculum. Next week, you will step fully into the role of clinician, and you are surrounded here by those who've supported your medical education to this point, as well as those individuals that will guide the very next leg of your journey to becoming a physician. Now, we know that your family and friends, people, your outside support system is extremely important, and we certainly welcome the family and friends that are on live stream today. So welcome, and thank you for joining us here. But in contrast to your white coat ceremony and other outward-facing ceremonies recognizing individual achievement from afar, this event is focused on the educational commitment of the extended Wayne community in preparing you to provide compassionate, collaborative, and scientifically excellent care to all patients as you transition to the clerkship phase of your medical education. As such, this event is designed to be celebrated more informally with your peers, the university leadership, and the whole School of Medicine community, to include all your basic science faculty, your clinical faculty, and the alumni board, administration, staff, everyone who's involved. And I would like to take a moment to recognize all those individuals for a moment now. Either stand or wave or whatever you want, but just if you're part of going the educational process here, there's people that have joined us in the back as well, so you're surrounded. You can't get away from us. So someone said, I hope you're going to explain what an investiture is, and I had to kind of learn that term too. But President Espy just had her investiture, and it was a very ceremonial installation of her very high office. But the Latin root vestis, meaning robe, coupled with the preposition in, also signifies just being robed in, as bestowing authority and responsibility in general, not even just a certain type of robe. 2 years ago, you were all officially robed by probably one of us on stage in the white coats that you're wearing today. But today, you will take on the professional responsibility and be robed in that of a clinician, and then seal that with an oath at the end of the program. You will transition from being ordinary medical students. Now, I know that's a misnomer because there are no ordinary. You are all extraordinary. But you're basically from being a medical student to becoming representatives of our school and the medical profession, and that is how your patients will see you. Our School of Medicine history is deep and rich with experience, and you will now hear from a whole succession of clinician speakers to usher you into this realm. And we begin with our leader, Dean Sacher. Dean Sacher is a passionate medical educator. Over his 3 decades as a faculty, he has been an active participant in the teaching and mentoring of medical students, residents, and fellows. For the last 2 years, Dr. Sacher has served as the dean of our school. In that leadership role, he oversees the Office of Medical Education, Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the recruitment and evaluation of department chairs, and the recruitment and evaluation of School of Medicine-based center directors. That's a lot of stuff, right? He oversees and coordinates the many dimensions of the School of Medicine and contributes to your quality undergraduate medical education and your experience as a student going through our MD program. His efforts were pivotal in leading successfully through the recent LCME process along with Dr. Baker. So I'm not done yet, Dean Sacher. It's a long one. And where together we achieved maximal accreditation of our school that set us on the path for continuing success in developing the best doctors, that's you, right here in the heart of Detroit. Dean Sacher.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chadwell. Always learn something new from you, including the Latin roots of some vocabularies. That's really nice. Welcome, everyone. Congratulations to our third-year physicians. The faculty and myself share your pride and your excitement as you embark on the next stage of your medical education. You have worked very hard to get to this stage. From the beginning, our school selected you from nearly 10,000 applicants because all of us saw in you what it takes to be a Wayne State University physician. Very bright, very committed, very compassionate, and above all, put the health and the wellness of the community as a top priority for you. You're about to meet new teachers, and they will be, some of them will be physicians, many won't. As you know, increasingly so, healthcare delivery in every setting is becoming more of a team approach. You'll have your fellow physicians, you'll have nurses, you'll have physician's assistants, and many more. So the skills that you be acquiring during these 2 years will be a little bit more than just learning clinical skills. The interactions, the growth, and most important constituency that you will be meeting are your patients, who are always the top priority of all of us. And as you hear later on, when Dean Baker administered the oath, that is the cornerstone of the practice of medicine. Please remember always that your school has been always committed and will continue to graduate the best clinicians and educators and leaders we can. And I think the track record before you speaks for that, but also you will continue to carry that torch towards the future. As you have completed the building foundation of the M1 and M2, please join me in acknowledging everyone who contributed to that completed phase of your education. The physicians, the scientists, the counselors. So everyone who contributed to that stage, join me in acknowledging them with a round of applause. And in advance, for your future teachers and colleagues, as I said, physician and otherwise, and primarily, again, patients. We look forward to that stage. I am sure you are very excited to do it, and as always, this school, its faculty, its administration will always be by your side. Congratulations, and good luck with the next step.
Thank you, Dean Sacker. So our commitment of community with you does not end when you receive your degree. And on board for your residency across the country, we had 30 states represented on match day just a couple weeks ago. From the moment you matriculate at Wayne and well beyond graduation with your MD in hand, you are part of a very large network of alumni whose generosity and dedication to your education is truly phenomenal. It therefore gives me very great pleasure to introduce Dr. Rebecca Kliz-Hulbert, President of the Medical Alumni Association. She's the Assistant Professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neurosciences, Program Director for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry for the DMC and Wayne State University program, and she's an incredibly dedicated and committed alumna. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Kliz-Hulbert.
Thank you, Dr. Chadwell. Welcome, class of 2026, to the Wayne State University School of Medicine's Clinician's Investiture. As Dr. Chadwell said, I'm Dr. Rebecca Klisch-Holbert, president of the Medical Alumni Association, and also a proud triple grad from the medical school. I'm honored to be here representing the Medical Alumni Association. This is an exciting time in your medical career. This is when your education really transitions to your training. You've built a foundation of knowledge about health and disease, and now it's time for you to put that knowledge into practice. This is what you've been looking forward to. This is why you chose a life in medicine. Bad cafeteria food, the smell of C. diff in the morning, and patients telling the attending a completely different story than what they told you. It's glorious. Instead of studying notes, watching lectures, and reading books, you'll be interacting with patients, checking labs, performing procedures. It's going to be challenging, but it's also going to be equally rewarding. You'll soon get to feel the fulfillment that comes from helping a fellow human being who has entrusted you with their health and their life. Now's the time to go beyond your medical knowledge and hone the other skills of a physician: empathy, communication, compassion, leadership, altruism, teamwork, and professionalism. From this point on, you'll be expected to work on every aspect of being a physician. Embrace every experience, as there's something to learn in everything, even manually disimpacting a bowel. You'll have to help and support of every step along the way, from attendings, residents, fellow students, nurses, and of course, patients. The clinical experience at the Wayne State School of Medicine is second to none. Program directors from residency programs are consistently impressed when our graduates function at the level of a resident from day one. I know you all know about imposter syndrome, and there's definitely going to be times when you feel like you're just pretending to be a doctor. You kind of are, and that's okay. It's part of the process. But the great news is you won't be dull in conversations anymore. Instead of boring your friends and family with details about how amazing our kidneys are, you'll actually have fascinating stories about patients' struggles and, more importantly, their triumphs. This is what you've been waiting for. As you move into your clinical rotation years, please remember that the Medical Alumni Association will continue to be here to offer support and guidance, and especially with the two most important things to medical students, food and money. For example, we can connect you with alums who practice in specialties that you might be interested in pursuing, even facilitating dinner with those alums. If you're interested in participating in externships or out-of-town residency interviews, we can help find alumni for you to stay with to save you money. And of course, we'll be here to offer career advice, counseling, and sometimes even a shoulder to cry on. Whatever you need, we're here for you. So on behalf of the Medical Alumni Association, we wish you great success in the next exciting phase of your medical education. Thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Klisch-Holbert. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today. So when we were thinking about this event, the first person, honestly, that came to mind is Dr. Eileen Hug. That's very true. She's really someone that is the correct person to address you in this special moment. She holds many titles, but foremost is a seasoned clinician and an educator. Dr. Hug has served our school for many years as an outstanding clinical professor, senior staff physician, and our director of undergraduate medical education at Henry Ford Hospital. Dr. Hug completed her medical education, got some competition, at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine and her residency in the Department of Pediatrics at William Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak. Her career in graduate medical education and undergrad medical education in both allopathic, and I'll just keep going for a minute, osteopathic area spans almost 25 years. Just in time for you, Dr. Hug. I've intersected with Dr. Hug really in a lot of different realms over the years, and I've always been struck by her focused approach, which I'm trying to keep right now, her clear communication, her professionalism, her resolve that is anchored in her wealth of experience with patients and learners. In essence, she is a role model we can all aspire to. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Hug.
Thank you, Dr. Chadwell, for such really kind words. Distinguished guests, faculty, friends, and Wayne State University School of Medicine class of 2026. Give yourself a round of applause. You are halfway through medical school. You've been waiting for this part of medical school where you finally are in the clinical arena. You will, of course, by the end of the clerkship year, decide what kind of doctor you will be. Surgeon, an internist, maybe even a pediatrician. And I know for all of you, this is front and center in your thoughts. And as important a decision this will be, it is minor in your professional career compared to a bigger question. Who will you be as a doctor? The who will be tested almost immediately as you start your clerkships. Will you be the student who's taking care of the lady with CHF in room 206, bed B? Or will you be the student who knows Mrs. Jones was admitted 2 days ago? She lost her husband a year ago to cancer and lives alone. Will you be judgmental to the patient who has severe liver disease due to a lifetime of alcoholism? Or will you be gentle and kind? Who will you be? Will you be the student who races to the library after rounds? Or the student that stays behind and helps the overworked intern look up labs so he can get lunch? Will you be the student who's smug to the other students after getting a question correct with rounding with the chair of medicine? Or honest with your colleagues that the questions they were asked you didn't know either? When you enter a patient's room and the patient asks for water, will you go, "I'll get the nurse," or will you go and get water? So who will you be? During fourth year, will you help out the M3 students navigate the hospital, or will you laugh at their feeble attempt to present a patient to the chief resident? During your intern year, will you volunteer to take a call for a fellow intern who needs to go home to visit a sick parent, or will you look the other way? Will you be the resident who yells at the medical students and the interns and the staff, or will you take a deep breath and understand everyone's working hard? So, doctor, who will you be? As a physician, will you do what is right for the patient always, or will you do what is easy for you? Will you call them with their test results so they don't have to wait and worry? And when speaking to your patients and their families, will you be the brilliant mind that talks, or the brilliant mind that speaks with the heart that listens? So, doctor, who will you be? I would respectfully request you join me in a mental exercise. I want you to imagine taking out a piece of paper and writing on that piece of paper, what kind of doctor will I be? Who will I be? And I want you to further imagine taking that piece of paper and folding it very gently and putting it in the pocket of your white coat next to your heart. And as you change your coat from medical student to intern to resident to eventually attending physician, keep that mental piece of paper in your pocket and think of it often. All of us who have practiced for decades can attest our profession is full of frustration. Whether it be the insurance company who makes you go through hoops of prior authorizations for your patients, health systems who demand more of you than seem possible to give, patients who are ready to challenge your education and experience because, after all, they've done their research on Dr. Google. However, for every frustration, there are 10 more joys in our profession. So, of course, you will not be perfect. None of us have been or are. But as the curtain draws on your career, if you tried to do what was right for your patients always, supported your colleagues, and were respectful to staff, you will have made a positive difference in many lives. And at the end, you will have had an amazing career. And with that, I wish you all the best.
I think that needs to go to print. That was truly wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Hogg, for those really inspiring words. Now for the next part of your program, we'd like to take a little reflection. I know you're used to us asking you to do reflections, right? And we want to take a little look back in time, but also look ahead to the next phase of your medical education. So to take us through that, we will be joined now by Dr. Miller, well known to all of you from your pre-clerkship phase. Dr. Miller graduated from our medical school in 2013 and remained in Detroit for residency. She trained at the Detroit Medical Center in the combined internal medicine pediatrics program, and then stayed on an additional year as a chief resident. Dr. Miller is an assistant professor of pediatrics and has worked in the Cato Clinical Skills Center since 2018, serving first as assistant course director and then as the course director for the Segment 1 Clinical Skills course. She teaches medical students foundational communication, history taking, physical exam, and clinical reasoning skills. She also volunteers as a preceptor with the Robert R. Frank Student-Run Free Clinic. And in 2019, she received the Leonard Tao Humanism and Medicine Faculty Award. Dr. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Chadwell. Hello, Rising M3 students. I am so glad to have the chance to talk with you today. And honestly, it's a great way to pass the time as I wait for Beyonce to drop the new album. So it's good. A few hours. Beehive out there? All right. So congratulations on getting to your clinical years. In my opinion, you have the best part of medical school still ahead of you. But enough about the future. I stand before you today as a kind of ghost of med school past. I just want you to take a minute or two to hold space for your M1 self. I want you to think about your first day of clinical skills, standing outside that exam room, worried about taking a blood pressure, thinking OPP, QRST, AA, and ready to meet Avery Anderson for the first time. You have grown so much since you were that person. That person may not have even known what step 1 was. Can you imagine? That person may not have known how to put their stethoscope in their ear properly. And that person hadn't yet had a truly overwhelming amount of knowledge poured into them by the people in this room. But that person, your M1 self, was special. And because of that, working with M1 students is one of my favorite things. After spending time in the trenches, practicing medicine, it's refreshing to work with early medical students. M1 students come to medical school with an energy and a passion and an optimism and a sense of purpose that's contagious. And it grounds me in the mindset that I need to show up for my patients in the way that they deserve. I invite you to reconnect with that energy and purpose to propel you into the clinical years. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Medicine is hard. And I don't just mean knowing which antibiotic to select to empirically cover a UTI or suturing through a lip laceration that's crossed the vermilion border. I mean finding it in yourself at 3:30 on a Friday to sit with a patient who's just received a new diagnosis of diabetes, even though you're already half an hour behind, and even though you have other patients waiting, and you have notes to write, and you have labs to check, and you have plans you're really trying to get to by 5:30. And diabetes to you is such an everyday diagnosis. But for the patient in front of you, it's life-changing. And they deserve your care and your attention, despite all of the other pressures that you're under. Your life is about to be full of these hard moments. And those are the moments you need to make space for your M1 self. They'll guide you towards what's right. You're growing past that person in 1,000 different directions on your journey to being an expert clinician. But I'm here to ask you to keep your M1 self at your core as you embark on your practice of medicine, because that's what your patients deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Now, to help us look ahead, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alfred Baylor. Dr. Baylor received his medical degree from Georgetown University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C., and his residency in general surgery at Wayne State University School of Medicine. He is a site director for the surgery clerkship and a U.S. Army surgeon who has served abroad on multiple tours of active duty. He has been a dedicated mentor to residents and students through the years and continues as a trauma and critical care surgeon at DRH. He will share some insights to guide your experience now on the surgical clerkships, and then we're going to do the non-surgical clerkships. Dr. Baylor.
So, welcome to third year. Welcome to third year. How many of y'all been waiting for third year? All right, now, how many of y'all have an opinion about surgery? Yeah, one way or the other. It's either good or bad. I want to do it, or I don't want to do it. One of the things I want you to think about as you're going out, because surgery is a foundational part of medicine. And whether you want to do it, whether you never want to do it after the 12 weeks, you're going to run into some patients. And the teacher for you is the patient. If you look past the patient to your studies, to whatever else, you get lost in the milieu of life. So look at the patient, whether it's a trauma patient that you see on their worst day of their life, and you're the one sewing up the vermilion border, and you're the one helping the resident, you're the one holding the heart as we move to the OR. You never know what you're going to see at surgery. It could be a relatively mundane case of a hernia for us, but for the patient, is that mundane to go to sleep and have somebody pull a knife out and do what they do? No. So whether you're interested in surgery, pathology, it doesn't really matter. When you get to surgery, I want you to bring your whole self. I want you to come there ready to work in this decathlon called medical school. You just got over the first hurdle, step one, yay. You got over step one, yay. I mean, y'all ain't acting like, yay. Okay. So when you get to surgery and it's a sprint and a marathon put together, you're going to be tired, you're going to be ready to go home, but you're going to have to stay because you are committed to the patient. Because the patient is the most important thing. I'll eat when I get home. I'll sleep when I get home. But like it's been said, this was a terrible day. I thought I was on my way out the door and trauma code 1. And now we're going to the ED and there's a badness of an 18, 20-year-old, 40-year-old. And where do you want to be? Do you want to be there? You're thinking, well, I'm not going to do surgery. I don't want to do that. No matter what you do, you came to medical school to be a patient advocate with these and this. And most importantly, with this. So never forget to put your heart into every rotation. So when you come to surgery, I'm going to talk to some of y'all next week, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to go to this place and that place. But in reality, you just about to get into the foundation of medicine. You're about to jump into the actual thing you're going to do for the rest of your life. And you're going to be an adult learner, meaning you're not going to have enough time to read all the stuff you need to, but you're still going to have to read it. Amen? But one of the things I want to make sure that you don't forget is, if you have a faith package, don't forget your faith package. What do I mean? If you're a spiritual person, you're going to need it. You're going to have some days that you're going to go home and want to cry. You're going to have some days that you're going to want to go home and go, I can't do this anymore. So you're going to have to lean on something that's above and beyond you. And if anybody out there is interested in the military, me and Chris know you can go all over the world serving this country and bring in surgery if you go into surgery. Bring in medicine if you're going into medicine and helping others. You never know where you're going to be. And if you get infected with surgery, I can't help you. It's uncurable. We'll take care of you and get you through it. All right? Can't wait to see you guys when I do. Take care.
Thanks, Dr. Baylor. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Levine. She's an icon around here, right? She's a professor of medicine, also vice chair of medical education, and a clinical educator for the Department of Internal Medicine. She's a 1982 graduate of the School of Medicine and has received so many awards for her excellence in teaching. She will share some insights to guide your experience on the primary care clerkships. Dr. Levine.
You've heard a lot of me this week, have you not? Okay, so can you please put up my 64 slides? Okay, maybe not. But I thought my job was to convince everybody to go into internal medicine or primary care. Actually, what I said yesterday is you need to try everything on and find out where your happy place is. For people who are interested in surgery, the OR is your happy place. Everything melts away and you have focus. For those of us who aren't surgeons, we need to drink more coffee and go to the bathroom and get rid of the coffee and then have more coffee, and the OR is a scary place because you can't leave. I loved surgery. I did. I loved everything. I could not make a decision. I loved psychiatry. I didn't want to only do psychiatry because I do a lot of psychiatry at home. You know what I mean. I loved children. I decided to make them, and then I could have them forever. Yeah. I love patients. I love their stories. I love listening to them, and I love the diagnostic chase. I like to figure out what's going on and then follow the patient and be there, like my patient who just had twin grandchildren. And yes, they were in the intensive care unit for a long time. And now his complaint is his shoulder because he's taking care of him while his daughter has gone back to work. And I like to know there's a bigger twin and a little twin because one was in the ICU longer. But just like Dr. Hug said, I know the patient. And so I like primary care. I also like hospital medicine. I like the drama and the continuity. But I love the patient. And I'm not going to say that's primary care, though, because is there a person here who is a physician who doesn't love the patient? We all love the patient, whether you're an orthopedic surgeon or a general surgeon or a primary care doc or a hospitalist. So find your happy place, and we'll let you decide if your happy place is in the clinic delivering primary care, getting to know your patient, making the diagnosis, and then being with them as you help to improve their quality of life. All right? So looking forward to seeing some of you tomorrow for the orientation to medicine and for everything. And remember, what we all said is try everything on to find your happy place so you can be the doctor who's going to take care of us. And the little secret is, you know why we want you to be the best doctors everywhere? It's because we're all going to need a doctor, and we want someone like you.
Thank you, Dr. Levine. Our next guest is Dr. Eric Ayers. He is currently serving in the role as a program director of the Combined Internal Medicine Pediatrics program downtown, and along with being the director of student engagement and mentoring in the Office of Student Affairs with our team. And he has really led the development and the functionality of the Wayne State Warrior houses, which you're seated in those right now, and he has anchored that program. So I want to welcome Dr. Eric Ayers to talk about how we learn in community, really.
I was going to be corny and say whose house this was and then have you all shell out your colors, but I won't do that. Congratulations and welcome. A house has to be built from a firm structure, and that structure has to withstand the test of time. And within the context of the last 2 years, your houses are growing, and they are withstanding the test of time. They initially had the cement and the groundwork of the MD labs. Not the MD labs, Dr. Ayers, because you're showing your age, but dissection lab and your lab partners. And that grew to infest another group of the house or another room of the house where investitures were made to build the house. And that house now became not only 6, but 32. And in that 32, there was made up of pillars who had its strength and support that were there for the peer mentors, who then were guided by what became the arch, the coordinators. But that house is stagnant because it's horizontal in one sense, because it's your year. But true, the house is longitudinal. It's vertical. And that's what we want to see the houses move forward to. As you go out into the community and go into your third-year rotations, that verticality and longitudinality is needed there. That you don't forget those that are behind you, who represent you, who wear your colors, who have the same spirit, who walked in your shoes, who have the same questions, who need guidance just as you do. As you prepare and go into the hospitals, don't forget to be able to communicate and look and ask and assist. Don't forget what was taught you during the wellness days, because that's a pillar of what it means to help and support. But that's what you need in a house. A house has to support each other, just as students have to support each other. You are part of an organization that is growing, and that house transcends just being a medical student, but extends into the alumni when you become part of the Warrior family. Be Warrior strong. Know your house is strong. Support your house and give back to your house. The challenge that I have to give to you is, as you move, help the house move. Help your house move. Integrate it, support it, lift it up, and continue the growth process. And show the strength of your house by the test of time, that it can not only stand the test of time, but it can be integrated with wisdom, knowledge, and purpose. Because that's where we are now. As we build the houses, we want to integrate them with knowledge and purpose, led by the fuel and the heat of you, the student. Congratulations, and thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ayers. So now it's your turn. We're next going to present each of you with a few things on the stage, and one of them is a commemorative stethoscope. Now, it's not the Littman 4 titanium cardiology mega whatever stethoscope that costs $400. It's really a commemorative stethoscope that you can hang on your rearview mirror or something. We really want you to remember this day. And so it is symbolic, but Dr. Steffes will tell us a little bit more about really what a stethoscope or a stethoscope means. You will get that. You'll pick that up on stage along with a lapel pin, which we'll get to a little bit after you sit back down, and a professionalism pledge. These three items are really symbols and demarcations of your professional journey that's just about to be in front of you. So I'm going to call the learning communities up one at a time, and then you'll file Mrs. Mayweather there. You'll get to know her really well in the next a couple of years. And you'll file up on the stage, get those items. We'll have some help there, and then just stay right there, take a picture together. And we're not going to do poses and perfect family pictures. It's just a group picture so that we can keep this moving and by community. So I would like to welcome first the red house to the stage. All right. So quick picture with red, and then we'll have green start to line up. The greenhouse, please. You can, the green learning community of greenhouse. Yeah, you guys can go ahead and line up. The greenhouse, please. We're going to keep this moving. I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, it's, oh boy.
Yellow?
It's red and green, and now it's purple, and then it's yellow.
Oh, that is right.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah, purple community can go ahead and line up. Purple house. Good job. I see what you have in the pocket.
Yes, yes.
All right, that's purple. So next we have yellow, the yellow house. I feel like I'm calling bingo cards or something. But yellow house, please. Okay, that's yellow. Have everybody yellow? All right, orange is up next, orange house. Thank you, Orange Community, Orange House. Okay. All right, next we have the Blue House is already lined up. Congrats. Enjoy your
Oh yeah, it'll be pretty cool.
Okay, okay. Okay, that's the Blue House. Two more. The Gray House, please. All right, thank you, Gray House. And our last but not least is the Brown House. Oh, sure. Okay. So congrats, class of 26, again, for getting to this point, and we hope that you continue to thrive in your houses, in your learning communities. I do want to recognize the people on the stage that were helping, because these are very important, pivotal people that you're going to be working with these next few years. And I'm afraid I'm going to miss somebody, but they're all your wonderful teachers. I do want to point out Dr. Sprague, your Dean of Admissions here, and you can thank him later for giving you all a spot here. But he works really hard to make sure that we assemble a really good class every year, and that's a big job. And yeah, you can applaud him if you would like to, sure. All right. Yes. We've got, gosh, should I mention everyone? Our hospital partners are represented. I'll leave it there, but so thank you everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. You get to know these people very well in the next few years. But we do want to close get on with the last part of the program, which will be fairly quick. So that you can all get back to your own lives for an afternoon. We turn our attention now, though, to the professional responsibilities that are tied to your unique clinical training here in Detroit. You all received a lapel pin on the stage just now, and you are the first class to receive this first issue of the Wayne Train symbol. Now, this was the result of like a multi-$100,000 marketing campaign to come up with that, but no, it really wasn't. No heart attack, Dr. Dean Socker. It literally cost nothing, pretty much, because rather than being the product of an expensive marketing campaign, it's a project that, it's something that projects our brand. This idea was really born out of a very simple and even a very personal concept. When I was a second-year family medicine resident, my program director, his name was Dr. Battle, he needed admission to that intensive care unit. Seeing him on the patient roster, that was really traumatic enough, but he insisted that we, his own residents, took care of him. And wow, then I was like, wow, we better know what we're doing. I mean, there's imposter syndrome, and there's like, there comes a moment where you better know really what you're doing. People are counting on you. So we highly respected his leadership. He was like the captain, really, of his ship. And his clinical acumen, was stellar. And we were just kind of nervous that he would, call on us to take care of him. And I remember walking into ICU, and the intensivists and the nurses, they were all looking at us like, well, who are you guys? And we were second-year family medicine residents, and we were serving alongside, we were on the team, and he wanted that. So we were sure others could do it better, and this grave responsibility of caring for a physician that we respected so highly, who was now gravely ill, was upon us. So as a young doctor in training, that spoke volumes to me, because the fact that he absolutely stood by his brand, if you will, he believed in us, and he believed in the training that he was actually overseeing. So he actually did make it out of the intensive care unit just fine, but he had a bit of a ride there. So, but again, it was quite an impressive thing for all of us residents at the time. Fast forward to last year, when my OB-GYN doctor, a former student here, let me know she was moving out of state. I was really disappointed. She had taken over for my beloved Dr. Z, who had delivered all my kids and helped me through a very personally difficult time. He, delivered my kids, and we had this bond. And so, here I was again. I finally found another fresh new doctor, and now she was moving out of state. So I was back to square one trying to find a doctor. And she looked at me, and she saw my disappointment, and she said, I know, you only want Wayne trained. And I said, that's right, I only will go to Wayne trained. And that's really, that kind of stuck out to me. And so, yes, that is so true. I absolutely stand by our brand, and that's you, just as my PD instilled that belief and confidence in our clinical training in me. So you are the first class to receive this pin, in recognition of that, our absolute belief in you and the clinical training that will launch your practice years now. There is no one better to underscore that sentiment than one of our very own students, and that is Sanjana Rao. Where are you? There you are. One of our M4s, she has graciously, I heard her story in the last month, and she has graciously agreed. She came right up to my office. I said, can you come and we can talk through this? And I want to hear this. And she's going to share now. She sat in your seats a year ago, and she has a short story that she's going to share with you to encourage you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sanjana Rao, and I'm a fourth-year student here at Wayne. As you all enter your third year, it's hard to know what to expect. Although it doesn't feel like it now, third year is going to fly by. Each rotation is so different from the other, and by the time you're used to one, it will be over with the challenge of having to understand what is required of your next rotation. At least that's how I felt. It can be hard to understand and process the changes that you are going through and the massive amount of information that you're learning every day. I wanted to share with you all my experience of something that happened in my real life, which helped put a lot of third year and our career as a whole into perspective. About 3 weeks ago, I was walking through Aldi to do my weekly grocery shopping after a morning at the gym. I remember thinking as I got in my car that maybe I could push off my groceries for a day, especially because it was leg day and I was tired. I debated not going, but I decided to anyways. I was almost done getting everything on my list and had just pulled out my phone to text my roommate to see if she needed anything. As I was reading her text asking me to grab her some chips, I suddenly hear someone's voice yelling to call 911. I ran over to where I heard it from and see someone who had collapsed with his head held off the ground by a younger woman who I later found out was his daughter. She was bent over and yelling for help. My reflexes kicked in, and I immediately dialed 911. After noticing that someone else was calling, I hung up and turned my attention to the situation. As the woman slowly let her father's head rest on the floor, we came to an understanding that he did not have a pulse. I couldn't help but notice how unrealistically blue his face and hands were. Louder than the thoughts that were screaming, "I can't believe this is happening right now," were the thoughts of, "We need to start CPR on this man." We began compressions and alternated for about 5 minutes until he had return of spontaneous circulation. That was the first time that I had felt someone's broken ribs under my hands. Within a few minutes, he was responding both to us and to the EMS who had just arrived. During the few minutes that this was happening, it felt like I was on autopilot. Some part of the back of my brain was replaying our life support sessions, prompting me to ask where the AED was and continuing compressions regardless of feeling his broken ribs, because this man's life was in our hands now. Looking back, I can't say what would have happened if this same scenario had occurred a year ago when I was in your shoes. A year ago, I was getting ready to start my surgery rotation, just hoping to get through it without being too sleep deprived and without passing out in the OR like I was told would happen. If you had told me that the first time I would be doing CPR was not, in fact, on my 24-hour surgery trauma call, but instead on the floor of Aldi on Woodward Avenue, I would not have believed you. Feeling confident enough to one day feel like I could save someone's life in a grocery store is something I could not have fathomed. Although I still have so much learning ahead of me, third year helped me not only grow clinically, as we all do, but also as a person. You will be presented with circumstances where you must go out of your comfort zone. You will see and experience things that you didn't think you were capable of handling, but you will. You will meet people of all ages and walks of life, each with a unique story to tell, and will be moved to see how the things you've been learning about for the past 2 years can have such a profound impact on so many people. Your thinking of a particular condition or a diagnosis will go from being a set of symptoms on UWorld to an encounter that you have with a real person. With each new rotation and team presenting a new set of knowledge and challenges, you may feel like you're starting over every time, but you will eventually look back and be surprised at how much you have learned and how much you've grown in your confidence and identity as a clinician. I know everyone tells you this, but keep an open mind this year, not only in terms of what you would like to specialize in, but also the person that you're going to become. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjana. I would now like to welcome to the stage Christopher Steffes, our Associate Dean of Clinical Medical Education. Dr. Steffes is a general surgeon who has been a faculty member of the Department of Surgery for more than 30 years. He joined the Wayne State faculty in 1993. He has served as professor, clinician educator in the Department of Surgery since 2009 and as the Year 3 Clerkship Director in the Wayne State Department of Surgery from 1997 to 2017. He earned a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering in 1982 from Cornell University and his medical degree from the University of Wisconsin, Madison School of Medicine in 1986. His general surgical training was at Wayne State DMC. Dr. Steffes has a wall full of awards, if you've ever been in this office, and recently added the Leonard Tao Gold Humanism Faculty Match Day Award to his many recognitions just a couple weeks ago. He was instrumental in navigating our school through the turbulence of the pandemic, and his steady leadership as our Dean of Clinical Education will also guide this class through your clinical years. Dr. Steffes.
She added in all that introduction stuff that I had crossed out. All right, everyone, you've all heard enough from me this week, so I'll keep this short. But as we go through explaining these things that we handed out, I'm going to give some explanation because they are symbolic. So I'm going to talk about symbolism and metaphor. As humans, our brains develop to recognize these and strive to understand the meaning and possible truths that underlie them. Language and imagery, oft thought of only the domain of poets in our profession, or often the domain of poets, are in our profession, and appreciating them can help us reflect who we are and how we grew into our profession, and how we all individually grow into our profession. As we get ready to take our professionalism oath, which is coming up and is printed on the handouts that you received, this oath will guide us through our clinical years of medical school, residency, and long careers. I'd like to briefly think about the stethoscope that you just received and the relationship to the oath that you are about to recite. What is the symbolism? What are the metaphors? And what do the root words relate? Go back to René Laennec. He invented the stethoscope in 1816, a device to allow the physician to politely listen to the heart, lungs, and great vessels. Root words: stethos, chest; scope, to examine the chest. The stethoscope is our connection to the patient, our way of hearing what's going on inside. The early model was a short wooden tube with a trumpet shape at the end. You may have seen the pictures in the old books. The modern stethoscope has some tubing, a little bit longer, that allows us to maintain our professional distance while still connected to the patient. Metaphorically, even as we are listening to the intimate details and anatomy and physiology of our patients, we also need to keep our professional distance to maintain our objectivity. So this development in revolutionary Europe marked the revolution in medicine. In the 18th century, physicians relied mainly on the patient's story to make a diagnosis and would do so by letter. I guess that was earliest telemedicine. You'd write your symptoms to a doctor, and they would send you back what mercury you were supposed to take, I guess. Medical school was only lectures. It was not necessary to see patients during medical school, only to learn from the experts. Only the barber surgeons touched the patients. The stethoscope changed that. Physicians and students saw and examined patients daily, and the practice of medicine became more scientific, empiric, and personal as patients tried to figure out what was going on inside the body, rather than what humors were out of balance. Now, when rounding, these findings need to be recorded daily by the student clerks, and thus the origin of student clerkships. There's still a temptation to treat patients remotely, whether over a Zoom link, reviewing the charts on the EMR outside the examination room, or just making diagnosis and treatment plans while looking at CAT scans. But the stethoscope takes us back to see the patient and listen to the patient. Even in modern practice, the stethoscope is our tether that maintains our connection to the patient. The stethoscope also allows doctors to hear life. As Aristotle wrote, life is movement. And where we hear air moving, heart valves closing, blood swishing, we know there is life. We rely on our stethoscopes to listen to a newborn's breath sounds, to tell us when we successfully obtain an airway in a dying patient, to listen to the flow of blood and beating of the heart when assessing vital signs. At the end of life, when called to pronounce a patient medically dead, we pull our stethoscope and listen to any last sounds of life. Hearing nothing, the physician announces the time of passing and pockets the stethoscope and goes on. So although we have many more accurate modes to assess disease of the chest, we would never think of representing a physician without a stethoscope. It is a key symbol of our profession. In your handouts, you have a professionalism oath that everyone will recite in a moment. On the other side of this, there is a list of Wayne Warrior, MD, physicians in training principles of physician identity. These were recently developed by a Wayne State committee. There were a lot of committee meetings to come up with these, and this was led by Bob Frank, our former dean. This committee identified outstanding physicians who were thought of as consummate professionals, and then wrote down the words that described them. There are 16 adjectives there. They all start with a C, the 16 C's. This seems to some as contrived as a gimmick of alliteration, but when you look at them, it's only coincidence of Latin roots that these words that describe a physician who excels at professional relationship with a patient. They describe the link, the connection, the relationship of the patient and the physician. Most of them begin with CO or COM, co or com, using the Latin root meaning together with. Compassionate, competent, committed, conscientious, compliant, collaborative, confidential, community, collegial, considerate, communicative. All describe the relationship of the patient together with a physician. The patient-physician relationship described by these words has no better symbol than the stethoscope, which allows our ears to listen to the heart. And by the way, the Latin root for heart is cor, and that is the root of our last C, courage. So at this point of time, I will call up Dr. Baker, who amongst his many roles is a Senior Vice Dean and will lead us in our professionalism pledge.
Thank you, Dr. Steffes. I find it really interesting that really good surgeons typically have a great appreciation for medical history, and that's a very consistent thing. So you just heard someone who has a great appreciation for medical history. Are we going to, it's going to, okay. Okay, please rise, everyone. I'll begin by reading the first line of the pledge, and when I have finished, you will repeat it as a class. Again, I think we're going to make it easy for you, right? So you don't have to memorize it. Pledge of Ethics and Professionalism. I publicly acknowledge and accept the privileges and responsibilities given to me today as a physician in training and dedicate myself to provide care to those in need. Okay, you guys have finished step one. You got a lot of room up there. Yeah, go on. Yeah. I will approach all aspects of my education with honesty and integrity, embracing opportunities to learn from patients, teachers, and colleagues. I will certify only that which I have personally verified, and I will neither receive nor give unauthorized assistance on examinations or clinical reports. I will respect the humanity, right, and decisions of all patients and will attend to them with compassion and without bias. I will strive to earn the trust of my patients place in me and respect that society places upon my profession. I will recognize the privileges afforded to me as a physician in training and promise not to abuse them. And promise not to abuse them. Knowing my own limitations and those of medicine, I commit myself to a lifelong journey of learning how to cure, relieve, and comfort with humility and compassion. I acknowledge the principles of professional identity as reflected in the competencies uniquely set forth by the Wayne State University School of Medicine and will maintain the higher standards of professional conduct. I make these promises solemnly, freely, and upon my honor. Thank you. Please be seated. Dr. Chadwell.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. Before we conclude today's ceremony, I would like to thank my staff, you've seen them all around. They've worked very hard to make this a special and memorable day for you. Thank you. They're terrific. And not just for us, but also for the whole School of Medicine. Also Matt Guerin, where are you, Matt? For always capturing all of our special events, and oh, there you are, in photos, and polishing up all our, our wonderful slides, and just always putting a nice touch on everything and being so patient with our team as well. The AV crew, thank you so much. Family and friends online, thank you again for sharing this moment with your physician in training. Please enjoy the rest of the day. God bless you, and see you on Monday on the wards.
We'll have another long speech. We're concluding with a quick remark. Dr. Chadwell never fails to thank everyone on her team, the collaborators, everyone who contributes to that. I would like to extend the medical school gratitude to Margaret Chadwell for all the effort she puts into the events that celebrate you, celebrate the students. From this very particular event, which is very significant, by the way, we are in the heart of Wayne State University campus. You all have the pin of Wayne trained. So not only you belong to an outstanding medical school, but also you belong to a great university. So Margaret, thank you so much for putting this together. And yes, thank you for all the staff in Students Affairs and beyond, and wish you the best.
We're done now.